pointing to that. And they're highlighting how there are things that are going on in the NBA, maybe because of animus, jealousy, et cetera, et cetera. You can't rule out the possibility that the administration may get involved. There is a senator.
Apparently, there's some jealousy that might be manifesting itself into physical, inappropriate conduct.
When was the last time you heard someone suggest a federal investigation over the way a player is treated in the WNBA? Stephen A. Smith just did, and it's all about Caitlin Clark.
For no reason. I happen to know a few people who have said this is something that do not be surprised that President Trump speaks on eventually. And if that man decides that this is something that can feed his base, that can ingratiate himself with that kind of audience that is protective of a Caitlin Clark and what she stands for and what she represents, and they come to a conclusion that they believe she is being unfairly treated, that is going to be a problem for the WNBA.
See, this isn't just another sports debate. This is turning into a conversation that sits at the intersection of basketball, media attention, and what's considered fair treatment on the court. We're talking about a situation where on-court contact, officiating, and league response are now being discussed in the same breath as civil rights violations. It all kicked off after the Wall Street Journal published an opinion piece with the bold title, WNBA and Caitlin Clark's Civil Rights. The article claimed referees have consistently failed to protect Clark from overly physical play since her rookie season in 2024. And here's the wild part. It called for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations. Think about that. Not just a league review, not just a fines and suspensions conversation. We're talking about the possibility of bringing in the government to look into how a player is treated in professional sports. It's very clear, Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA has spiked the ratings, ticket sales surge, and a sponsorship magnet all rolled into one. Before she even stepped onto a WNBA court, she'd shattered college records at Iowa and pulled in audiences that rivaled major men's sports broadcasts. You see, when she went pro, she didn't just join the Indiana Fever. She transformed the economics of every arena she played in. Home games sold out, away games sold out, TV numbers went through the roof, and major brands lined up with endorsement deals. She's a generational talent with crossover appeal, and that's exactly why the way she's treated is such a big deal.
There's a lot of jealousy and animosity, and that can be understood, right? If you've been a VP of the league in the past, yet you were unable to achieve the visibility and perhaps the endorsements that Caitlin Clark has received right out of the gate, it shows that it's normal to assume that there would be some degree of resentment. However, the concern is that resentment is then leading to targeting on the court. It's happening at a higher rate for Caitlin Clark than anyone else.
Come to think of it, when your biggest attraction is also your most polarizing figure, the spotlight is unforgiving. Every foul, every no call, every confrontation gets replayed 1,000 times. From the jump, Clark's rookie season was physical, and not just in the playoff basketball kind of way.
So she is taking on harder fouls and at a higher rate than any of her peers. So it turns out that in her rookie season, she absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls, or hard fouls, more than double the rate of any of her peers. This is not something that you would see occur to any other top star in any other league. And I think a lot of fans are scratching their heads of why the league is allowing this to continue, especially given the economic impact that she's having on the league, which they've so desired for decades.
There were moments that made fans question whether she was being targeted. Take June 17, 2025, Fever versus Connecticut Sun. In the third quarter, Sun guard J.C. Sheldon appeared to poke Clark in the eye. It wasn't called a foul. Seconds later, Marina Mabrey bumped Clark to the floor. And then Sophie Cunningham, Clark's teammate, shoved Sheldon to the ground in retaliation. That shove sparked a brawl, and Cunningham got ejected. You could feel the energy shift in the arena. And that wasn't a one-off. On August 30th, 2024, Diamond DeShields delivered a hard foul on Clark that had social media buzzing. Some called it a welcome to the league moment. Others said it crossed the line. Either way, it became part of a growing highlight reel of Clark getting hit, shoved, or knocked to the floor. Then there was July 15th, 2025, another matchup with the Sun. Clark took a hit that led to a groin injury. She missed 8 games after that. Injuries happen in basketball, sure. But when these moments start to stack up, people notice. And when they keep going viral, they become part of the league's image problem. And it's not just Clark calling out officiating. Angel Reese, Natasha Cloud, and others have publicly slammed WNBA referees this season. Complaints about missed calls and inconsistent enforcement are common. But Clark's case stands out because she's the league's biggest draw, and because the no calls against her seem to come at key moments. Now that's where Stephen A. Smith comes in. Stephen didn't start the federal investigation idea. That came from the Wall Street Journal. But he did go on his show and give it serious weight.
Here's the deal. You have a lot of people in America out there because, you know, when I saw that article, I commented on my show, the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube, talking about Caitlin Clark and how a case can be made on her behalf if folks were to get involved by the level of physicality that she's been exposed to and how people are portraying her as being victimized. An argument could be made about that.
On his podcast, he said the government could have a case if they looked into Clark's treatment.
I'm saying to the WNBA, because I support the WNBA, I want them to succeed. I want all of these ladies to get their money. I want them to have their success. I'm just warning them, watch it, because if he gets involved and that base gets involved, because somehow, some way they embrace victimhood on a part of Caitlin Clark, it could be a problem.
Stephen floated the idea that Clark's situation could become a national, even international issue. And to make his point, he cited precedent. He mentioned the $221 million settlement the Trump administration reached with Columbia University over alleged civil rights violations. Here's his point. If the federal government can step into a university dispute over discrimination, they could, in theory, step into the WNBA.
What I'm saying is the present administration in the White House, with some of the things that they've been willing to do in the past in terms of going after institutions, in terms of highlighting stuff like Trump did in the past with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL, with him, this is not something that's beyond reproach. This is not something that he is unlikely to speak about. Her teammate, Sophie Cunningham, has said it's been excessive. Rebecca Lobo, our analyst here at ESPN, says every play against is a foul. Dickie V, Dick Vitale, the great Dick Vitale, accused players of being jealous.
This is why the federal part matters. Smith wasn't just talking about the league cleaning up its officiating. He was pointing to something deeper, the possibility that the treatment crosses into workplace discrimination or even civil rights law. In the sports world, that's heavy. It opens the door to questions about protections, workplace safety for professional athletes, and whether a star player could claim she's being singled out unfairly because of her popularity, race, or public profile.
That the administration may get involved. There is a senator, and I forget his name, who sent a letter to the WNBA requesting an answer as to why Caitlin Clark seems to be receiving unfair treatment from the referees. She missed no games last year. She's missed 17 games this year. When she has missed games, go look at the ratings, the numbers, they plummet. There's a 36, even though it's over 2 million viewers for WNBA All-Star Weekend, there was a 36% drop in the ratings compared to the previous year when she played. She's a cash cow.
And while Stephen is known for his hot takes, this wasn't just noise. It was a direct warning to the league. He even called for the WNBA to adopt the NBA's last 2-minute report system to hold referees publicly accountable for late game calls. In other words, fix this before it gets bigger.
And embracing her is a long way towards that. Don't make her the enemy, because it's not going to work for the WNBA. Caitlin Clark, like it or not, is one of, if not the preeminent face in the WNBA. Get over it.
Obviously, Stephen knows the value of a marketable star. Caitlin Clark is the biggest ticket the WNBA has had in years. Protecting her isn't just about fairness. It's about protecting a major asset for the league's future. If she keeps getting roughed up and it looks like the league isn't stepping in, that's bad business. Aside from this, there's a bigger equality conversation at play. Women's sports have been fighting for fairness and recognition for decades. The second it looks like a female athlete isn't getting the same protection as her male counterparts, it becomes more than just a sports issue. Stephen has always been vocal on that front, whether it's NBA players, NFL stars, or now, a WNBA rookie. Come to think of it, the WNBA wasn't pulling these TV numbers or selling out arenas before Clark. For years, the league had a loyal but small fan base. Clark's arrival flipped the spotlight on overnight. That sudden attention can create friction. especially with veterans who've been grinding for years without the same hype. That's human nature in competitive environments. Not only that, there's also a race and media favoritism conversation happening in the background.
Indiana team. Now, 64% of the WNBA is black. All right, Caitlin Clark comes in and is immediately the biggest star in the league. Immediately. And merchandising in every other way. Apparently, there's some jealousy that might be.
Clark is a white player in a predominantly black league. Some critics think the media gives her disproportionate coverage, and that tension spills onto the court. Stephen doesn't say it outright, but by backing a federal investigation, he's stepping into a debate that's already messy. So in his mind, protecting Clark is about protecting the league's image, addressing fairness in women's sports, and making sure the biggest draw in WNBA history isn't driven away before she even hits her prime. But not everyone's buying what Stephen is selling. Some people think the whole idea is over the top. This is basketball, not a crime scene, they say. To them, hard fouls and physical play are part of the game, and Clark just needs to toughen up like every other rookie. Anyway, there's also the camp that believes the targeting narrative is exaggerated. They argue the WNBA has always been physical, and the veterans are just testing her the way they would anyone else. In that view, bringing in the feds sounds more like a headline-grabbing stunt than a legitimate step.
Anyone else. And unfortunately, it's creating a textbook hostile work environment for Caitlin Clark. And under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the federal government does have an ability to engage here, should they so choose.
And let's be real, a federal investigation into a sports league isn't common. To some, it feels like a PR move that risks making Clark look like she's getting special treatment, which could fuel even more resentment in the locker room.
That's correct. I know a lot of people say it's sports, that, we should expect hard fouls, and I agree with that. I'm a sports fan. I like seeing competitive play, but unfortunately, facts are stubborn things, and the statistical disparity in the amount Caitlin Clark is being fouled compared to any of her peers in the league, or the treatment that she receives compared to any other top stars in any other leagues, there's no comparison to it. And so she's facing a hostile work environment. Unfortunately, it appears that it does impact a protected class, her race, as evidenced by quotes by players in the league. And there is a federal element here to where the government can intervene. And we've already seen this. The federal government gets involved in sports all the time. We've seen it with MLB and steroids, NFL concussions, USA gymnastics and Dr. Larry Nassar. And even just this past year, President Trump and his administration have really leaned in to fixing disparities at universities and within the NCAA, within fencing, swimming, gymnastics, and has been receiving direct results.
Meanwhile, what could a federal investigation actually look like? How would this even work? In theory, the Department of Justice could get involved if there's a claim of discrimination or unsafe workplace conditions. They'd review the WNBA's conduct policies, watch game footage, and look for patterns in officiating. You'd also see interviews with players, coaches, referees, and league staff. They'd dig into whether Clark's being treated differently, on purpose or by negligence. It wouldn't just be about fouls. It would be about whether the league is fulfilling its duty to protect its athletes. From there, the outcomes could vary. They might find no wrongdoing and leave it at that. They might suggest policy changes, like clearer rules for flagrant fouls or stricter penalties for dangerous plays. They could even require training for referees on spotting targeting. That's why this isn't just about Clark anymore. It's about whether the league can ignore this when someone with Stephen's platform is telling the world it's a federal issue. So in the short term, this means every time Clark gets fouled, it's going to be a bigger story than the game itself. Every replay will be slowed down. Every commentator will weigh in. The microscope's only getting bigger. See, that kind of attention can be a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it forces refs and the league to think twice before letting things slide. On the other hand, it can paint a target on her back if other players feel like she's being protected more than they were. In the long run, this could change how the league treats rookies altogether. If this sparks stronger protections, future players might benefit from what Clark's going through now. Her legacy could end up being about more than stats. It could be about forcing a conversation that reshaped the WNBA's culture. Come to think of it, for someone in her first year, that's already a lot to carry. And with Stephen now backing this on a national stage, the pressure's not going anywhere. So no one knows where this goes from here. The calls for an investigation could fizzle out, or they could snowball into something that changes the league forever. The next few months will be telling. If more incidents happen, the noise will get louder. If things quiet down, maybe this fades into another sports debate that never went anywhere. Do you support Stephen's claims? Let's know your thoughts in the comments. Do like and hit the subscribe button for more Caitlin Clark videos. Thanks for watching.